Yo, what's up, guys? It's Evil Elron. How you doing? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be going over Trump's first 5 months in office. I wanted to make a few videos, like in a series, on all of the topics that I'm going to cover today. Each side's going to be a different topic from the last 5 months. I wanted to make a video for each one, because each one I feel strongly about. But every day, new insane crap happens in each of these stories, and I don't want to just put out, oh, Trump did this new sensationalist thing. I want to wait and see what happens really. Some of it could be good. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it would have been good. It was possible. There was a route for it to be good, but Trump seemed to fucking foot and mouth it every single time. So let's take a look. Our first slide here is the most recent one, the most relevant one to today. It's Elon versus Trump. I don't know if you haven't seen the news, but Elon recently left the government. And it's been a bit of a noisy exit. They've been having a little tweet war back and forth this whole day. So the first thing I want to say is that this is stupid and weak, okay? This is the weakest thing I've ever seen. Like a guy who supposedly worked for the president and had such a great relationship with him. Remember, Trump did a freaking Tesla commercial on the front lawn of the White House for this guy. They were supposedly that close. He's now leaving with a literal black eye, supposedly from a fight he had with one of the other cabinet members in Trump's cabinet, because that's what kind of boss Trump is. He lets his people fight each other. He's leaving, and they're having a shitstorm. As I heard someone say, the most powerful man versus the world's richest man. It's just insane that they're having a shitstorm on Twitter. I don't know how that happens. But anyways, sorry, bug. I think it's important to remember that Elon Musk is incredibly autistic by his own self-description, right? Remember he did that Nazi salute thing? Heart goes out to you. Did it twice. Even after he'd been told that it looked like a Nazi salute, he did it again. That guy, whose excuse was, oh, I'm just really autistic, I didn't know. That dude is leaving the government with some fucking anger and hatred after he got access to everybody in the country's personal data. All of the nation's secrets he got access to. The way our government works, the way our bureaucracy works, what actually is still in place, and which part of the government he fired and removed. He has access to all that information. And if you believe some of the Democrat conspiracy theories out there, he's literally downloaded voter information and personnel data on every citizen in America while he was there. That doesn't seem like the kind of guy you want to have this pissy match fight with. An autistic guy with everyone's personal information and the government's direct information. You want to piss that guy off who isn't even a citizen, right? Who has no natural born loyalty to our country. You want to give him all of that information and then piss him off and kick him out the door? That doesn't seem very smart to me. I wouldn't have given him the information in the first place, but now that you have, to kick him out in such a big, ugly way, it's pathetic. It's weak. I don't know another way to describe it. But speaking of Elon Musk, I want to talk about Doge. Doge has been a headache, and it's impossible to cover almost because they don't announce any of the things they do. You find it out later in hidden reports and shit like that, and people talking on the sides, because they aren't answerable to anyone apparently, except for President Trump, and I don't even know if that's true anymore now that Elon Musk is gone. But what was the promise of Doge? Doge was supposed to provide trillions of dollars in cuts. That was the promise. It was $4 or $5 trillion they were going to cut. Okay, let's be generous. Let's say it was only $4 trillion. They actually cut less than $50 billion, and I believe that recently the codified the lawful cuts that Congress has approved, it's only $9 billion. So regardless of where you want to place the blame for Congress not codifying it or whatever, it seems like there's no ability for Trump to govern. Let's say that all of this Doge stuff was allowed, right? Why wasn't he communicating this to Congress? Like, that blows my mind. The fact that he didn't even tell Congress enough of the cuts for them to write it down into their big, beautiful bill and, like, codify them into law so that judges can't overturn them. Because right now, Doge's actions are being overturned left and right. That's why I said it's only $9 billion. That's the stuff left over after what judges have said you can't cut. Like, that's the stuff that the judges were like, okay, yeah, I guess you can cut that $9 billion. That's what made it into the law. And everything else is being challenged. So it's not effective. That's orders of magnitude, which is like another way of saying 100 times less money than was promised to be cut. I think it's like 50 times, but you get the picture. It's a ridiculous amount to be off by, right? If I only got a 2% on a math test, I'd be fucking kicked out of school and sent back down a grade, right? Like, you can't have a 2% accuracy rating on some promises like that and then be like, haha, we kept our promise. It doesn't work like that. You don't get credit for that. On top of that, there was needless cruelty and chaos. I wrote down cruelty in the slide, but really, it's absolute chaos. I can't believe it. You had Elon Musk sending out emails saying, reply to this within a certain amount of hours or you're going to get fired. And then department heads were like, oh, you're not going to get fired. And some people got fired and some people didn't. And no one knew what the fuck was going on. I can't imagine a lot of important government work got done during those few months when all that craziness was going on. Like, it seems hella inefficient. Now, in the civilian world, there's a professional way to do things and an unprofessional way to do things. All right? Most companies that are successful do it the professional way of doing things. They're calm, they're polite, it doesn't become personal, there's order to the things that they do. They have guidelines, they say, hey, these are our expectations, if you meet them, you're good, if you don't, you're out, and they give a reasonable amount of time for people to meet those expectations. Elon Musk was incapable of doing any of that stuff with Doge, and Trump just greenlit it. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Maybe he was doing ketamine with Elon. But I don't know where the fuck he was on that. But yeah, so there was needless cruelty and chaos. Needless. Absolutely needless. And probably expensive. It probably cost America a good chunk of change. On top of that, we have massive cuts to international aid. U.S. aid program 1, but just aid in general. And who does that help? That helps China, our geopolitical enemy. Why does that help China? That's a good question. The reason it helps China is because there are two ways to be a superpower, and you need both. One is militarily. America has that. We have the biggest and strongest military in the world. Okay? And that helps us influence other countries with our military. The other way we can influence other countries is through monetary aid, through programs, through other, like, various ways, you know? There's a lot of ways to influence a country without sending in the military. And it's preferred that we do it without sending in the military, actually. It sounds crazy, but you don't have to send in the Marines for every fucking problem, okay? You could send in the Red Cross or some shit like that. I don't know. But that's hurting us. And so we are no longer seen as the good guys in these countries where we were helping people. Or at least not to the same degree as we were. There's going to be whole generations of kids growing up not knowing that America is the fucking awesome people to, like, look up to and to try to be friends with, especially. Because you don't want to be our enemy. But we don't want to go around making everyone our enemy because we can only send the Marines so many fucking places at once. They're the few of the proud. Few. They can't be everywhere. Right? So it helps for us to be friends with everyone if we're going to swing our dick around as much as we do. Right? Now, China is waiting for these countries to not like America so that they can swoop in, be their friend, take their resources, things we're doing, right, and create their own world order where they're at the middle of it. And that increases the odds of war, especially world war. If China has an alliance of nations that it thinks will have its back in any potential Taiwan invasion, for example, it's more likely to invade Taiwan and trigger World War III. And I think everyone agrees we don't want World War III, right? So this is becoming an issue. On top of that, we've seen massive cuts to civilian R&D. Primarily, the one that I think of off the top of my head is the cuts to cancer research, which is fucked. Like, everyone's saying, why don't we have a cure for cancer yet? Well, it's because of shit like this, right? Republicans come in and cut cancer research. They're like, oh, fuck it. I guess they're just giving up on cancer research. Or maybe after cancer got Joe Biden, Trump was suddenly like, ooh, we want to keep that around for a little bit. I don't know. It's a fucked up joke, but there's a non-zero chance that that was part of Trump's thinking at the time, right? I think that's key to note. All right, moving on. The big one, which is the tariffs, that's the one that everyone and their fucking mother has heard of. I want to say something to be clear about tariffs. I would have supported certain tariffs, right? If Trump wanted to do a 1% across-the-board tariff, with his emergency powers that he's using now, because keep in mind, there is a international emergency of America versus the entire world. It's declared on paper that we are in a national emergency against the entire world. Think how insane that is. And that's allowing Trump to implement these tariffs. Right? Now, if he had done something reasonable, right, something like 1% tariffs, and his justification would have been simple. It would have been the reason we're in debt. Hey, we just spent 20 years at war. We need to rebuild our economy a little bit because every time a nation comes out of war, it goes through a small recession. That's kind of the way things go, right? So we need that money to pay off our debts to prepare for the recession. So yeah, a small 1%, 2% tariff on the entire world, it wouldn't have done anything to international trade. We would have, very little. Like, people still would have freaked out like the far left would have. But realistically, it wouldn't have crashed the market like we saw on April 4th when Trump announced Liberation Day, where he liberated us from our wallets and our 401ks, right? I think this is the first self-inflicted market crash. Like, self-inflicted. This didn't happen on accident. This wasn't like some bad actor somewhere. This was Trump just like, you know what? I'm going to crash the fucking market. And we're going to see what happens. Just see what happens. It's not like he had a plan. He was just going to crash the market and fucking hope manufacturing came back to America. Which, spoiler alert, it's not going to. All right? I don't know about you old people. If you guys want to go in there and work on iPhones, my generation and younger isn't a huge fan of manual labor. All right? I don't know who the fuck is going to be in these factories. But it's not going to be me. I'm a delivery driver. I'm going to be in the car sitting down chilling, right? And I don't know a whole lot of people who will be in the factory. When I go to work, there is a factory that I deliver out of, and they go through people like fucking Swiss cheese, like a hot knife through butter. It's wild. They can't keep people. The only people they keep are old. Who the fuck is going to be in these factories? So, we have a massive intentional hit to our markets and 401ks that's hurting everyone who's about to retire or who has retired recently. If you just retired in the past 5 months, you are fucking directly hit on this. And if you're going to retire in the next 5 years, you're going to be taking hits on this too. End of the day, it hurts people, right? And it hurts the people who voted for Trump the most. Like the older people, the people who are about to retire. You guys got fucked. You screwed yourself. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I don't feel bad for you that you lost your retirement savings. This is what everyone said was going to happen. But now that it has happened, I hope it's a bit of a wake-up call. On top of that, the bond market took a huge hit. Now, why does that matter? The bond market is where we borrow money so that we can pay for all this stuff, right? Now, keep in mind, Donald Trump just inflated the national deficit by like $7 trillion a year or something like that. And that's going to be even harder to pay off. It went from like 5.0% to 5.004. Now that 004 might sound small, but this is a $30 trillion deficit or a $30 trillion debt that we have that's growing every year at a rate of like $7 trillion a year. Probably more by the time we get to the end of Trump's term. It's probably going to be growing by more trillions of dollars every year as the economy slows down and tax revenue decreases and things like that. And I don't see it being positive. That bond market, we're going to have to pay that back. Those trillions of dollars, we have to pay 0.04% more to borrow it over time. Why? because Trump has a temper and he can't talk to other nations like a normal human being. Just so Trump can make a point. We now owe billions more on what we were going to have to borrow anyways. Because Trump can't keep his fucking mouth shut and make rational decisions. Alright? That doesn't sound worth it to me. Right? If you want to do tariffs, that's cool. Do it. Do it smartly. Don't do it like a complete idiot. Don't piss off everyone. Don't alienate America's allies. Because they're the people who keep our bond market doing well and low so that we can borrow more money for cheaper. Like, this whole thing was a debacle. I don't see anyone who's able to accurately defend this. There's a lot of ways he could have done it well, and I would have supported it, but that's not what we got. Moving on to immigration. This is where I'm going to lose half the Republicans, so if you're still here, thanks for holding out. I don't mind if you log off now, red dude. But please hang in there with me a little bit, because I think this is important. The thing about immigration is that Trump promised to kick out the illegal immigrants, the criminals. And Democrats don't have an issue with that. I don't believe. Any Democrat who does have an issue with that, yeah, they're fucking insane. Okay, there we go, Republicans. If you stuck around, there was your reward. If Democrats want to keep illegal immigrants who are committing crimes in the nation here, that's a problem. Unless they want to send them to jail. That's, I believe that we should send people who commit crimes in America to jail in America, and when their sentence is over, then send them back. Fucking broke if they survive America's jails, because America's jails are fucking intense, I hear. So that's what he promised he was going to do. Now, this is this line right here. Pretend there's a line here. Okay? Trump, this is the illegal immigrants who are committing crimes that are being kicked out. And our total deportations is doing this. Where do we get the this when the criminals is staying pretty much the same? That jump is coming from international refugees, international students, and people who are going to citizenship hearings, right? People who are going to get their green cards renewed, people who are getting their work visas renewed, people who are applying for asylum, things like that. Those aren't the people Trump said he was going to kick out. The thing is that the people he said he was going to kick out are criminals. Therefore, in order to find them, you need to have investigations, and you need to have police out searching for them and collecting evidence and then bringing that before a judge. And, there's no way to do that faster unless you fund the police. That was the whole thing. Trump was against defund the police. Here's your chance. Fund the goddamn police and have them do their job, right? Super simple. Trump can't figure out how to do that. We're just send ICE in there and we'll skip all of the things that make America America. Everything that makes our legal system work the way it does, it makes it a paragon of legal systems across the world. We're just going to fucking ignore that shit and go back to, 1600s England where we just arrest people willy-nilly, fucking throw them in jail, throw them into other countries. We send people from Guatemala to the center of Africa for some fucking reason. I don't know why Trump's able to get away with that. That seems insane. That seems like cruel and unusual punishment. For what? Going to your citizenship hearing? That's what we want them to do. We want them to go to citizenship hearings. We want them to pay Social Security with legal employee ID numbers that they get at these citizenship hearings. We want them to get work visas to pay into Social Security. All these immigrants paying into Social Security are the reason Social Security is able to stay up. Because they pay into Social Security legally, and then they don't get it after that. Legally, they're not getting it. If people are getting it legally, once again, fund the goddamn police. But Trump's not able to do that because Trump's so full of shit. He has no idea what he's doing. Now, this is the biggest slide on here, or the second biggest slide, depending on how I feel that day, what's pissing me off most recently. I'll get to the other one next, or in a little bit. And that's his attempts to remove our civil rights. The Fifth Amendment was, ahead of its time. Everyone loved the Fifth Amendment. It was the first thing that said a government can't just come in and take all your shit. They have to send you to jail. They have to try you. They have to say that you've committed a crime and give you a chance to defend yourself, right? That's why we're not a monarchy. We're a democracy with a legal system, or a democratic republic, however the fuck Republicans feel like describing it today, because that changes every few months. but it's really the backbone of our legal system, and it guarantees you due process. Now, some will say that doesn't guarantee you a court trial, and they would actually be correct. You're not guaranteed a trial, but you do need to be guaranteed some chance to fight the charges against you in case the government, for example, makes an administrative error of some sort and deports you illegally. You have the opportunity to stand before the government and say, hey, you made a mistake. Here is the court ruling that said you can't deport me. And then the government could say, oh, cool, thanks, we didn't catch that. Sorry about that, you're free to go. And then the people who can't say that end up getting deported. Instead, we get Abrego Garcia, who I made a video about a little while ago, if you saw it. Some of you did, probably most of you didn't. But the government admitted they made a mistake. And then they sent him to El Salvador. And then after that, when the government was like, or when the court was like, hey, bring him back, they're like, ooh, he's out of our hands for good now. Can't do that. Ha ha ha. Got around you. And what happened after that? The court went, oh, cool, so you're not trustworthy. Now you can't do that anymore. And the court stopped him from being able to deport people to El Salvador without due process. But Trump would be able to do this expedited process if he had some semblance of due process. If he could just fucking take the broomstick out his ass for 10 seconds and do things in a logical way, he wouldn't have lost that ability. The Supreme Court would have had his back. But because his whole point is to be an asshole to people he doesn't like, he lost the ability to expedite. Misspeak. He lost the ability to expedite deportations, right? Because he couldn't follow basic rules or basic principles of American democracy. And I think that sucks. If you're a MAGA guy, that should especially suck to you because you almost got away with it. At first, the Supreme Court was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And then after Trump was like, well, fucking, you can't tell me no anyways, they were like, I bet. Let's go, cuz. And fucking now Trump can't do that anymore. Right? So, if you're a MAGA, you should be pissed about that, right? For different reasons than I'm pissed, but hey, you do you. Other attacks on our civil rights have been his attacks on free speech. He's suing the press. The Washington Post editorial board was all removed, and they changed their whole editorial board to avoid being sued by the government. And if you think that's an insane take, look at Harvard. Look at Columbia University, who just lost its accreditation because it didn't want to give into Trump's anti-DEI practices. They were like, yeah, we're cool with DEI. Keep in mind, these are private institutions, right? Like, they might be government funding, but these are self-contained private institutions made up of free thinkers. People who don't fucking take orders from nobody. Kind of like Trump. You tell them they can't express themselves in a certain way, they're going to get pissed off and fight you. That's American. That's being American. I don't know what to tell you. That's the heart of our country is doing that shit. You're trying to fucking make them bend and bow? Are you shitting me? That's the least American thing I could ever think of. And then attacking free speech, he's deporting anyone who protested Gaza. And I think once they told him you can't do that, he was like, oh, but I can just deport everyone as long as I don't give a specific reason. And now he's deporting all kinds of fucking people. It's mindless. There's no overall strategy so far, right? It's a clusterfuck. But speaking of Gaza, Israel and Hamas, that was the thing. I was one of the few Democrats who was on Israel's side, right? I thought Israel, if they get attacked, you have a right to defend yourself. I support Ukraine. Therefore, it's logical I'd support Israel, right? The person who gets attacked should be allowed to defend themselves and fight back, right? You don't throw the first punch, but you don't fucking take punches lying down either. That should be every country's policy. You don't start things, but you finish it. That way, there's no war. No one starts things. That's the whole principle behind international diplomacy since World War II ended. That's kept things pretty stable. We haven't had any world wars since then. And then Trump becomes president and everything goes to shit. Now, Israel has been attacking Hamas. They've kind of been bending, the moral rules, you could say, around warfare. They've been bending them a little bit since October 7th. But once Trump came into the office, they stopped bending them. They just broke them. They just stopped giving a fuck, right? It was moral and good to defend Israel up until January 20th of 2025. And then Trump was like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And Israel did whatever the fuck they want. And now they're pretty undeniably committing war crimes recently. Before they weren't. Trump comes in, gives them the green light. Now they are. Now there's more war crimes. Now there's more death. There's more destruction. Why? Because Trump's being a dick. He doesn't think about the things that he says. He's literally hurting people with his words, with his inability to give a shit. Right? This guy doesn't even know what the ICJ is, the International Criminal Court System. I butchered that acronym. He doesn't know about the International Criminal Court System, right? There's an International Criminal Court of Law that charges people for these things. He had no idea that Israel was up there for genocide. And his buddies in South Africa were the ones taking the case for Gaza against Israel. And they have a much better case now because of Trump. Yeah. I know I just mentioned Ukraine. This is, in my opinion, the most important slide here because I feel the strongest about Ukraine 99% of the time. It's the most black and white, morally good and evil story out there. Ukraine wants to be part of the free world. They want to leave the clutches of the old Soviet Union. Anyone who's over the age of 40 should know that this old Soviet Union was bad, right? Like, there wasn't really a good question. They created Stalin. Stalin had a higher body count than Hitler did of his own citizens, all right? There's no doubt that the USSR was not a good place to be. Ukraine wants freedom from that, like all these other countries in Eastern Europe. They want to join the rest of the world in a system that they know to be better, which is the free Western system of democracy and law and order. If you watched my video that I interview with Avi, one thing that he said to me, he was like, yeah, before people would come into the coffee shop and he said they want a new coffee shop, they wouldn't go buy one and build one. They'd go to the city mayor and they'd say, like, here's $5 million, and then they'd walk into your coffee shop and they'd say, I own this now. And if you say, no, this is my coffee shop, then they pull out a gun and they go, are you sure about that, motherfucker? Like, do you want that in America? You might think you want that, but you don't. There's maybe like 1,000 people in America, which is a country of 300 million, who would benefit from that kind of system, right? If you think you're part of that 1,000, you're not, right? Like, we don't want that. That's not a good system. It's a demonstrably bad system, right? It's an evil system. We don't want it. I promise you, we don't want it. And then he goes on to have this argument with Zelensky. Ukraine conveniently loses funding after that argument that Trump clearly manufactured. It loses funding just long enough for them to lose Kursk. Now, if you wanted an end to the Russian-Ukraine war, like a lot of MAGA supporters said they wanted, I remember hearing left and right, why can't we just have peace? Don't Democrats just want war? We want peace. Well, in the peace process, the idea would have been that Ukraine could say, here, you have Kursk, we have our regions, Donbass, maybe they give up Crimea. I don't know. It's possible, right? Negotiations happen. We're not putting that on the table right off the bat. But now that they don't have Kursk, what are they going to negotiate with? Now they have to win, right? If they want to survive, they have to win militarily because they can't trade Kursk back. And why did they lose Kursk? Because of Donald Trump just being an asshole. He decided to get offended for no reason. And there is still no peace. He went through all of that with Zelensky because Zelensky wouldn't say thank you. And we've had, failed peace talks in Turkey where they lasted 2 hours and then both sides went home. Zelensky showed up in person because Trump asked him to. He showed respect. Trump asked Putin to show up. Did Putin show up? No, he didn't. And recently, Putin's just been saying, like, yeah, we don't want peace. Why would we? Trump's about to walk away from Ukraine. We're just going to steamroll in. And Europe's saying, well, shit, now we need a military. Germany, for the first time in a long-ass time, has a big military that they're funding and building up in preparation to either help Ukraine or defend off Russia, whichever one they can get to first. Like, if you wanted less war, this wasn't the way to do it. This is leading to more war, as far as I can tell. There's still no peace, and Putin's doubling down. So, I don't know what to tell you. If you wanted peace, this isn't going to do it. And yeah, it's sad. It's fucked up. Every promise that Trump made, I haven't seen him make good on it. I've seen him do Project 2025, which I didn't even give that a slide because it was so obvious he was going to do that shit. Oh yeah, it's pulled that. I guess I won't do it then. That was him. Oh, I pulled that. I guess not. Fingers crossed. Da-da-da. So, fuck. The state of our country, man. It makes me depressed. But I wanted to make a video. I wanted to do a follow-up on the Ukraine interview. And I wanted to do videos on all these subjects. But it keeps getting worse. Like, it doesn't get better. That's what I tell my sister every time I see her. It's going to get worse before it gets better. That's what it seems like. And that's been true for the past 5 months. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And it's been getting worse. And, I don't know. I would love to argue with someone or debate with someone rationally about how this could be good, because I have no idea. I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me. So if you want to try and explain it in the comments, or if you just want to cry along with me, go in the comments. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm. Leave a comment. That also helps the algorithm. And if not, appreciate you guys watching. Y'all have a great night.